It's been a bit of a battle this morning trying to work out what to shoot. I got up early, I was trying to get above the fog for a morning shoot here. When I left home there was kind of no fog. I thought I'd just go and check this place out because it's not too far from home. When I got here the fog actually started coming down and I was in the fog. And I thought I'll just climb up. Halfway up this mountain here, normally you can get above the fog, and when I got up to the tree line I was still in the fog. That wasn't ideal. I decided to climb up sort of halfway up the mountain. I got up to an area where I could kind of look out through a hole in the trees, and then I found that the fog had actually dropped right down. So I should have stayed where I was. Anyway, such as photography. Not the most wilderness of places. It's quite cool coming up here, but you can never get away from man-made noise so close to a town, or so close to a highway anyway, you can hear the trucks and cars roaring past. So I changed my composition here. The fog cleared up pretty quickly in the composition that I was shooting just before, so I've pointed the camera up at the mountain here, and now the fog is actually coming in, so now I'm not sure whether this is going to be worth it either, but it could look quite cool once if the fog clears again. It comes and goes, so we'll persevere. So I'm pointing up at the mountain up here. The fog is kind of coming in again now. Hopefully it's going to come and go. The mountain just coming out of the fog every now and then. So the composition that I was shooting down this way, the fog's pretty much cleared now, and it's a pretty boring composition because you can only see the foreground, which is all farmland and actually cars on the highway now. So I stopped that time lapse. Well, weather keeps changing and the mountain is pretty much obscured right now, but I'll keep this time lapse running, and hopefully it'll clear again or reveal something which could look quite cool. Just never know. In this situation I don't bother using a ramping device if I'm just shooting sunsets or sunrises for short duration. So I just change the camera settings manually normally, with making sure that it's got quite a robust setup. And change the settings between shots, try not to bump the setup. But the other way of doing it is if you want to do it wirelessly, download apps that communicate with the camera wirelessly, and you can change your settings on your smartphone wirelessly, so then ensuring that you don't disturb your setup. The fog's clearing off the mountain. That's pretty cool. I'm glad I persevered. I'll just keep this time lapse going for a bit longer. So this is just a pretty cheap third-party intervalometer that I've had for years and years. Probably cost about 20 bucks. Does the job just as good as any, I would say, just as good as the big name brands. I've got the interval set on 2 seconds here. You can set the number of frames you want to shoot with this, up to 400 frames I think, and then the next setting is infinity. I just have it set on infinity. The thing about these intervalometers is that one of the, if I can actually get that to focus on there, you can see that I've done a bit of a hash job. I tried cutting one of the wires because one of these wires is the focus wire on the trigger. It sends a signal to the camera to tell it to focus the lens, to autofocus. With that signal, it's actually encroaching into the buffer time, or the interval time on your camera, and so basically, unless you want your camera to focus each time you're taking a shot with the intervalometer, which I definitely don't, for the only situations I use the intervalometer for is for time-lapse shooting. I always have the lens set on manual. I don't want the lens to focus each time it tries to shooting, to hunt for focus. That's just eating into your interval and your buffer, and it'll cause misfires every now and then. So what I was trying to do there is cut the cable that is the autofocus cable, but I didn't know which cable it was. So I've got to come back to that and try and work out which cable it is to actually cut it, so I don't have that autofocus trigger. Can ignore the red sticky tape I've got on there. That was just to cover the backlit LCD and the LED light for nighttime shooting. For dark nighttime shooting, you just have to cover up all the sources of light. If you leave one of these LEDs exposed, it'll definitely light up your foreground and create quite an undesirable effect. Going to wrap that shoot up here this morning. Conditions weren't quite what I was after, but I'm glad I got out of bed and came out and gave it a go. Where I normally shoot up in the mountains, the conditions this weekend just weren't going to work out. Even though it's a dark sky period, there was just a lot of cloud forecast, and it was just all clagged in last night when I looked at the forecast, tried to work out whether to get out or not to do a nighttime shoot. So I came in to try this location instead to try and shoot something this weekend. I like shooting the fog, but it's really challenging to try and be in the right place at the right time when the fog conditions are really good. This morning had potential. I was in the fog here when I arrived, and then I climbed up high and got above the fog, and that's exactly what I wanted. But the problem this morning was that there was sort of this medium level cloud around to the south and obscuring the vista that I was trying to shoot. So whilst I was above the fog and would get this sort of nice swirling effect and time lapse in the foreground, there was no scene in the background, so it was kind of a boring composition. But I tried shooting this scene up here with the mountain here and the fog coming and going, so we'll see how that turns out. That might be quite cool. Anyway, time to head back and have a coffee, download these photos, play it back and just see what I've got. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the content, and if you did, please consider subscribing to my channel, and if you hit the notification bell, you'll get notified when I post new stuff and you can follow along with me. Thanks again, and we'll catch up with you in the next video. So since I didn't get the conditions I was after on this trip, here's a flashback to almost 2 years ago when I had absolutely perfect conditions. And this is just to show you what you can capture when you're in the right place at the right time and you have a little bit of luck on your side. Some good conditions this morning. This is exactly what I've been trying to anticipate for the last few days. The only problem was this morning I wasn't really prepared. I didn't think it was going to happen, so I kind of slept in and I wasn't out here early enough. So lessons learnt. With time lapsing, you've basically got to be ready to go all the time when conditions can just happen when you least expect it. So yeah, out of the forecast that I had for the last 3 days, I think this morning was probably the least likely one from what I could see that there was going to be this blanket of fog that was really after. So I'm just shooting an HDR shot here. I haven't been shooting HDR for a while. I've been using the time-lapse view to ramp shots. I did a ramp shot before this one. I'm just shooting this with a Canon 200, 70 to 200 lens. I've actually got this on the shorter focal length at 70 millimeters. Shot the one this morning at about 135 millimeters.